Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you for this time together today to come together and talk about creative and innovative ways to worship together, to do Bible study, to connect with one another virtually in this time where we cannot gather in person. Be with us and guide us in this discussion. Inspire us and let us help one another as we delve more deeply into this world of digital ministry and online ministry. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, Jeremy, take it away.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I see some familiar faces on here and a lot of folks that I have not seen before. So just do a very quick introduction. I'm Jeremy Tackett. I'm the Senior Manager for Creative Services for the Episcopal Church in the Office of Communications. And I started out and still sort of officially and unofficially hold the title of Digital Evangelist for the presiding bishop. So I get to do a lot of this online stuff, and I've actually gotten to be really proud of a church that was already doing some digital things before all this happened, but we are certainly now ramping that up and trying to find new ways to do things. So thanks to Shannon and the crew for inviting me in to chat with you all a bit today and talk a bit about some of the different platforms that we use. Of course, the one that we're on now, the one that everybody has used, from the beginning, is Zoom. And what I want to encourage you to do is, and as I'm thinking through this, is if there's a question that you came in with, either about Zoom, about another platform, something that you want to just make sure that I get to, go ahead and fire those into the chat, and we'll either get to them pretty immediately or when it makes sense, but I want to make sure that we leave plenty of time for those. So if there's something that you just really want to know just right off the bat, let's start with that. So Zoom has gone through a bit of a PR nightmare since all of this happened. Anybody here experienced Zoom bombing yet? A couple of you, a few of you have. We've had a couple pretty high profile ones in the church on a couple of events. It's something that we've had to deal with. And, we want to think that we can just leave the doors open. We want everybody to come into the church, whether that's digital or in person. But unfortunately, we've had to find some ways to close off to those that don't have any interest in being part of what the church is doing. So very well documented that Zoom has been through some of that. So you've probably noticed that there's a lot of new changes with the new update to Zoom. Things like adding passwords to your meetings, being able to have a waiting room to let people in. And those are all kinds of things that are a bit antithetical to the idea of doing evangelism, but are just part of keeping a secure online environment. So those are a couple of things that we're working with. That said, Zoom has, just like all these digital platforms, become pretty native to a lot of our folks. We have churches that do worship on Zoom, small churches that do entire worship services. We've had folks with varying success try to do music and group singing on Zoom and Skype and those different platforms. Haven't seen a ton of success with that because there's this weird lag thing that happens. So we've had a lot of trouble getting music to happen, but I have seen places that do solos from different places that have some sort of singing where we invite a leader and then everybody turns their mic off and they're singing, and so you're kind of part of it in that way. So it's all just part of creating a not perfect environment. I think one of the things that gives us a little freedom here is that we are not trying to build the thing that replaces church and is the next great thing. We're trying to get through a very stressful, very complicated lifestyle. So, and one that we hope is going to change and is going to go back to normal at some point. But right now, I just want to give you permission to let some of those frustrations go, to tell you that it is okay. However you're doing this, whatever is working for you, wherever you find those small successes, live into that and understand that at the highest levels, this is a frustrating time. Everybody's dog is going to come into the frame at some point. Everybody's kid is going to walk through the room. Zoom is going to do an update on Saturday night, and it's going to crash everybody's services on Sunday. All of those things happen, and that's part of it. And that's also one of the reasons that I want to walk through some other options with you. So I'll go through basically what I'm going to do is share my screen, show you just for you guys, I have signed up for a lot of services. So I'm going to get tons and tons of spam emails into my account just so I can show you all of these things. But it is actually really good to get to dig through and see what some of the differences are. So you're going to find, no matter what service you use, let me just see if I can share just this Google Chrome window. All right, everybody sees Jeremy Tackett's personal room on Cisco WebEx. Great, I got a thumbs up from Shannon. You're gonna see a lot of things that look similar across the board. And one of the notes that I want to give you is right now, look at the pricing for any of these services because there are a number of them that are offering free months for 50 to 100 people, almost all. I'm actually looking across my list of tabs here, with the exception of Vimeo, which I'm going to talk a little about at the end. All of these services have some sort of at least free trial period that's running for a few months, or they have taken the limits off of their, in many cases, the limits of time that you can have a meeting. So one of the things that is a limitation of Zoom, for example, is if you have a free account, you're stuck with only 40-minute meetings. And so you get the countdown timer and then you get kicked off the meeting if you don't upgrade the plan. So Cisco is one of the examples. And what I will do is in the chat, I will put these web addresses as I come to them so you can see. The first one is Cisco WebEx. And I suddenly can't see any of you guys. So let me switch over here. Very strange. I don't know where you went. Someone send me a message if I'm still connected to you all. Just
you are.
something.
You are.
Excellent. I don't know where I went. I don't know where any of you went. That's very strange. All right, so I'm just going to look at my screen and walk through these. So you're going to see across all of them, you've got some of the same basic options. You're going to be able to start your meeting. You'll get a few different options. Cisco, for example, has a desktop and a web app. One of the things that I think is important as we're trying to figure out ways to invite folks in is we want to have as few barriers as possible. Understanding that not everybody is going to download a new piece of software. They're not going to want to sign in. So I'm going to show you a couple of options that don't even require you to have an account with that service. And then one of the other things that we want to take note of is where there are options for folks to connect that maybe aren't even fully digital. So folks that aren't going to use a smartphone, maybe they're not even going to log into a website, but maybe they want an option to call in and join the meeting. Of course, that's an option that Zoom has. Cisco also has that option. Skype we'll talk about as well. So just something to think about, that we want to get beyond what is just maybe the coolest technology, the most fun thing for us to use, and get something that really is accessible to the most folks that we have. Stacy has said that, yes, there's a discount for Zoom through TechSoup. Absolutely check TechSoup for all of these different types of accounts because they have a lot of really, really good nonprofit discounts. I'm going to show you what a meeting looks like in Cisco. So if I just hit start meeting, you're going to get something. And I did test this earlier, connecting with being on a Zoom call and trying to start a meeting in these other services, and that worked pretty well. So we're going to see if I can still do that. So this is going to look basically exactly the same as what you see in Zoom. You have the options to share your screen. You can see a list of participants. One of the interesting things here is you can lock meetings, so you've got a little bit more security here, a new way for people to connect once you get everybody in. And another feature that I really like about the WebEx system, if you're using the desktop app, is you have an option to do polling. So it's not a huge feature of the program, but if you've got a group where you need to take a vote on something, you want to get folks' opinions on something, you can do that as well. So just one of those, each of them you're going to see a bit of a quirky thing. Let me share my screen again here. One of the tricky parts of sharing in different things is you click the wrong stop share button. And we're going to end this meeting. Any questions as we're as I'm looking through these? Any questions on this particular platform? So again, Cisco's got, like I said, a few different plans. They've got a free personal plan. You can meet as long as you want. They've got a call-in option. You can have as many meetings as you want. You can have up to 100 people. Most of these applications are going to have Whiteboard is something that I've found to be really cool. Zoom has this feature as well. This is good not only for storyboarding out meetings if you're doing some sort of collaboration, but there are lots of games that you can play if you're doing maybe a youth meeting, a young adult meeting, or any group meeting. You can play Pictionary. You can do a few different things using some of these applications. Fun question for everybody in the chat. If you've played a game on Zoom or you found something that you've used to do an interactive activity, put that in the chat box and let us know what it is that you've done that your folks have found to be an interesting thing. So that's sort of Cisco, like I said, a pretty basic system. One of the other interesting ones that is absolutely free, if you have a kid who is doing online education, you have probably seen some sort of Google Meet happen. Google has now taken some of their Hangout features and some of their meeting features, put it together in Google Meet and created a free service that everybody can use. One of the interesting things that I like about Google Meet, it's very clean, it works really well, and it's very robust, also free. So there's not like a higher level program that you can buy. You just jump in, start a meeting. So I'll show you what this looks like. Looks like here as well. Again, you can see yourself, do the same type of setup. They do actually have captions on Google Meet, which uses the same system as YouTube to do live captioning. I tell you that with caution because it is automated. You're going to get some weird stuff. But if it's something that you're looking for as an accessibility tool, it is something that's built in that you don't see on the other platforms. This one also has an option to share your screen, which can be useful. Again, the captions are right here at present. You can do full screen. You can change your layouts. You can see different views so that you see everybody on the side. You get a tiled view. You can spotlight who is speaking, or it can do an auto setup for you. Somebody's asking, Stacy's asking, how does Google Meet work for folks? Heard it's kind of buggy. Would love for you to put your experiences into the chat box, or also just jump in and unmute yourself and we can have some conversation about it if you have something particularly as well. Bill, you are right. It works best in Chrome. That's really, you're going to find that across all Google platforms, is that Chrome is going to be your best option there. I'm going to hang up this call, go back to the home screen. Again, all of these are very simple. So you can either start a meeting or you can enter a meeting code. So you have the piece that you can share around with folks. You can either send them a meeting code directly, or there's a full link that you can send for people that would be joining your meeting. One of the newer ones that we've seen, and I'm actually not going to start a full room because a bunch of Facebook friends will join it, is Facebook has really just begun to dive into having rooms available. It's sort of a group chat feature that came out of Facebook Messenger. But you can start a room with anybody that you're Facebook friends with. You can also start these with groups or pages. You can start a room. I've seen a number of folks use this to create office hours. So occasionally on the Episcopal Communicators page, I will drop in and say, hey, for the next hour, I'm going to have a Google or a Facebook meeting room open. If you've got a question, just drop in. They're super simple to create. It's going to look very familiar to you in any type of post that you do on Facebook. So you can say what this room is for. Maybe you're just hanging out. You're just here all day if you want to really stress yourself out, and leave a window open all day for anybody to just drop in on your house. That sounds horrifying to me, but you can create a different kind of activity. You can say tech office hours. And so you save that. You can pick whatever icon you want it to be. You can choose who are invited. All your friends can do it. Again, if you're on a group page or if you're on a page or in a group, you can select for the folks that are in that group to see it, or you can make it public. Or you can also start a group with specific friends. So if I start one and invite Shannon, I have a number of Shannons on the list, but you can send invites. I'm not going to do that because she'll just get a notification. It'll get very complicated. But then basically what you get is just a window that looks just like FaceTime or a video call on Google or Facebook, where it's just the screen's up and it's a video call. You can add in groups and groups of people. The most that I have seen are about 10 or 15 on one of these groups. So I don't actually know what the top end is, but it's a really good option if you're already natively on Facebook. If you're looking for a place to meet with a group that's already using Facebook, great extension to the tool, and it's going to be very familiar to folks. Next one is Skype, which is a Microsoft product. One of the great things about this is you don't have to have a Skype account, and you don't have to have Skype installed for this to work. So if you want something that folks can just drop in, meet for as long as they want, you can just name your meeting and hit create a free meeting. It'll make a meeting link for you in real time, and then you can share that around, put it right on Facebook, send it in WhatsApp, Gmail, or you can just copy it and email it to folks. And then once you're in here, we are going to not open Skype. We're just going to do it here on the site, and we're going to join as a guest. So this is where it can look a little different for folks who want to join but don't have an account. This is separate from what you get using something like Cisco or Zoom, where you have to be connected to get in. Again, we can switch the video on. I have a switcher attached to my computer, so the video here is not going to show up. I have to go into some settings and change it. But just to show you what this looks like, once you get in, almost all of these are using the same kind of setup. It's almost the same back end. One of the limitations to Skype is there isn't an option on here for you to share your screen. This is just video calls and phone calls that are digital. So if you want a group just to get together and talk or have a chat, you can do that. But if you're looking for something to share a screen and really present information like what we're doing, Skype is not going to be what you want to use. Let me end this one. And then it tells me that I have no friends here, which is very sad, very disappointing, very isolating. Last one I want to show you is called Jitsi. And this is one that I'll put in as a link, meet.jit.si. Jitsi is a new .org open source platform that's really trying to do all of these things without having any connection to any company or anybody that's going to grab your data. Now, I say that with every hesitation, knowing that somebody's getting this data somewhere. So I just assume that that's getting out there a bit. But Jitsi is a fully functional program that I've used. It does really everything that Zoom does for meetings. I haven't seen a webinar function on here, which is something I'm not going to really get into deeply anyway, because it's a fully different conversation unless there's a specific question. But Jitsi does a really interesting thing where it instead of using some random code, it just uses words, and you can type your own words in. It's designed to use the type of security that puts random strings of words together. If you don't put your own in, it'll just generate a random string for you, and then you just click go, and then you're in. You can share your screen, you can raise your hand, you can open and close the chat. So it's really a fully functional. You can also see here that there's a dial-in number. You can add a password to the meeting, so you get all of the functionality. And again, I haven't seen limits on the number of folks that you can use here. I know it's going to be at least 50. I would guess around 100. To get on a call, but this is a really good option if you're looking for something that gives you most of the functionality of Zoom, runs completely in a web browser, and much like Google Meet, I've only used this in Chrome, haven't tested it out in other browsers. So if anybody has had experience with it, or if you're in another window right now trying it on something other than Chrome, would be interested to hear how it goes. But I have used this one with numbers of people, haven't had any trouble. It gives you options to set different qualities of your video. So if you're in a place that doesn't have strong internet connection, you can still get on and connected without it dragging down your internet to an unusable speed. One of the things that I have found interesting, and is just something you may want to note, I haven't dug into the settings deeply, but in default, there is a way for everyone to kick everyone else out. So rather than just having one host, it is truly open source. So anybody can remove anybody else from the meeting, which my groups of friends that are on just doing a Friday night hangout have some fun with. But if you're trying to have a meeting, something that you just want to keep note of. I'm actually going to check in settings now and see if there's a way for us to do that. Yeah, you can start everybody muted. You can hide everybody. Few different options that you can play with there, but again, no real easy way that I've seen to turn off the kick everybody out feature. So just something that you might want to note. Anybody have any questions there about any of those platforms, or any general questions about how you have meetings on this sort of platform?
So Jeremy?
Yes.
Yeah, so this has been at U of A. So one thing that I'm trying to coordinate is something where I can sort of combine a space where there is something along the lines of pre-existing chat rooms, or where I can curate to people where like there's going to be a regular Tuesday night Bible study group. So I can pour people into that like subgroup somewhere. And then I post, like if we're using Zoom or something like this. And like the closest, like the ancient thing I used to use for this was Tapatalk, which is now just like burdensomely old. I know Discord has some features like that, but when you want something that's more curatable than like a Facebook group, where you can have like ongoing like conversations and chat boards that then might port over occasionally to like a video conference, something that's more like robustly actually trying to create online community now and about. Like the closest thing I found like in recent is the Discord stuff, but is there alternatives to that, beyond Facebook, where, yeah, I know this is a higher barrier ask, but the idea is that we're sort of trying to create a virtual sort of actual like Canterbury group or something like that.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's not an area that I've done a lot of work with. What we use to do something similar for our internal teams is to do it by Slack, which gives us the ability to do different threads, and we can do video calls when we need to with teams. But Discord is one that actually, just in researching for this presentation and for this conversation, Discord came up a number of times, and it's a program that was built really for gamers and groups of online tech folks. But like everything else, like Twitch, like all of those different tools that were developed for very specific communities, and the new reality that we're in, lots of different folks are finding lots of different uses for it. Like Stacy said, Discord is something to look into. I'm gonna see if I can open it up. just to give you guys a little bit of a look inside it, knowing that I have not done a ton with it. So we're gonna skip setting up a server right now. Yeah, let's save this. Cool. Let's give it a look. So yeah, you can add friends here. You can look at, there's different public servers. You can start your own groups. So this is a way, Discord, their groups are called servers. This much I do know about the program. So you can create different servers for different groups that you're joined into, and it's probably going to be the best option that I have seen. And Shannon, one of the things that I will do from this conversation is I've got some notes here as well, things to look back on, and then I can send through you options that I find like this as I dig into it a little further after this conversation. So just so that you guys know that that's coming, I'll dig in further for questions as they come up. Anything else around this? Other questions that you've got? Yes, everywhere that I've seen, Discord is a free service as well. One of the other things that I wanted to show you is, in addition to just having a group like Zoom or one of these small group meets, you do occasionally want to have an option to do a service that you can stream out. Of course, Facebook Live is a great direct option if you want to stream a worship service to that group. There are now options that are being rolled out for Facebook for particular pages that give you a call-in option. If you are interested in trying out a call-in option for your Facebook Live, the way that we have found success in getting groups on that is by creating a Facebook business account, which is free. It seems that they're rolling out these options to their business pages first. So all you do, and I'll put it in the chat here, is go to business.facebook.com. and you'll use your regular account. And once you set up a business account, any page that you are an admin for, you can add into a group of business pages. It's really interesting if you are doing Facebook ads, if that's something you're exploring, if you have a number of pages that you want to group together and you have different admins and different leaders and folks that have different roles on your pages. The business side of Facebook is a great way to assign assets for different pages to one group. But we've also found that it's beginning to give more of these options for things like call-in features or the advanced things that they're rolling out in beta. You get first chance at using those types of things. So like I said, Facebook is catching up on getting beyond just a Facebook audience. Folks have had different levels of success in sharing a Facebook Live link once it's live and having people outside of it look at it. What I'm looking for is options that it's really simple for folks. So even though you may be able to grab a live link once it has gone live and share it out, now you're trying to run the event and get the word out about the event, usually as just one person or as a small group of people. So not always your most straightforward option. So using a service like Livestream or Vimeo is a great way. And this is the one place where I'm going to go very far in the other direction from just a free service. Because Vimeo, to use their encoders, Vimeo actually purchased Livestream, the whole company, and now it is part of their service. So if you're looking for something that really lets you get to the next level, this is what we have just moved all of the Episcopal churches. Well, we say we've moved our live streaming over, but really they absorbed the company that we were using. So we have become part of the Vimeo family. And what we found is there are lots and lots of different options for ways to get things out there. So for example, we're able to create a live event. And then once you get that event up and going, you can pick tons and tons of different destinations for it to go to. So you can connect it to, you can share it as a live stream link. You can share it to your Facebook page, to your YouTube account, and get one event in a lot of different places, which is great to get all kinds of folks involved. Really, if the goal is to get down all of the barriers, and no matter where people access your content, they're getting the same thing. A tool like this is a fantastic way to do that. The downside of it is that the only plan that they have available is $75 a month. So you're looking at about $900 a year to have access to this. Does it include Instagram Live? I do not know. I will check. We'll put that on the list of questions that I asked. We have not tried it yet. We've actually only done one live event from Vimeo into a Facebook page, but that's absolutely something that we'll look into.
Jeremy, there was a question about the difference. I mean, there are many differences, but if you can talk a little bit about YouTube versus Vimeo as far as a video sharing platform.
Yeah. What we have found is Vimeo gives you a lot more control because you're not seeing ads on free account videos. Now we're talking about things that are pre-posted. So just core differences between the two platforms. Embedding sort of works the same way. One of the big differences at this level that we're talking about here, where you have a Vimeo premium account that lets you do all of these things, is YouTube won't let you stream from a mobile device to your YouTube page until you have 1,000 followers. So this really slows down the use of it as a tool, because just setting up your phone and then putting it on a tripod and going and posting it to YouTube isn't going to work. You have to do it through a desktop, which means using other pieces of software, or plugging a camera in, using an encoder, putting it in your computer, and then streaming it to your page. So what something like Vimeo does, and there are other services out there that do this, Boxcast is one that I think is about the same price point, but there are a few others. But if you are interested in researching this, what you want to search is live stream simulcast. And when you Google that, you're going to find a lot of different options that are out there. You'll find everything from whatever open source options are currently available to the higher end things like Vimeo. One of the things that both Vimeo and YouTube offer is, if you are doing video editing, or if you are trying to create pieces that maybe you're using for a Bible study that isn't live, but you just want to create a series of reflections that folks can go back to and look at later, or do announcements, both of these platforms now have video editing software built into the platform, and it's pretty good. You're not going to create a new Hollywood blockbuster using just YouTube or Vimeo's video editor, but if what you're trying to do is dump some clips together off your phone, get something that looks good, that you put a bit of maybe music behind or a graphic over it and a link on it, you can do all of these things without having to buy any software, and then it is right there on the platform for you. One of the things that Vimeo does that I haven't seen on YouTube is you can actually publish to all the other channels from your Vimeo account. So if you do a Vimeo live stream and then you want that to be published to your Facebook page after it's over, and published to your YouTube page after it's over, you can just click a button and share it, and it'll go out to all those different places. So it's really cool, all-in-one solution. We could get into a lot more of workflow of video that's very off the topic of what I was invited to talk about. So, but if there are questions there, we can answer them. But it's a really cool platform. The one thing I will say is our communications team is working with Vimeo right now to get that price down for licenses by doing a some sort of a bulk across the church buy. And we've made some really good progress in those conversations. And hopefully, even in the next few weeks, we're going to start diving into some big partnership between Vimeo and churches that should help all of you guys that are in your local context get access to some of these tools without paying $900 a month. So No promises on exactly what that's going to be yet, but it is something that we're looking at. In the meantime, one of the things that we have found is a Vimeo premium account will work for 10 users. So I have suggested to dioceses that if you have a number of small churches that are maybe just using it once a week to live stream, you can share one account among multiple churches. And I told Vimeo I was going to tell people that, and they were fine with it. So just as an option, if you're looking for a way to bring a tool like this to places, you can get numbers of groups together and use lots of different streaming sources. And then with a little bit of coordination, you can do this and bring the price point way down.
So Stacy, does that answer your question? Stacy's question was, could a group of ministries share the Vimeo account? And my guess is that that would answer her question.
Yeah, you can. Exactly that. You can have up to 10 users used any way that you want. So, for example, what I've suggested to a diocese that's looking to do that is you have maybe you've got 25 churches, you want to get 5 accounts, you would have one person who is an admin to all of those, a diocesan communicator or somebody that's tagged particularly for that, and then you just divide up the others. The one thing to look out for if you do something like that, one of the hesitations is everybody that's in the account have access to all of the different pages as streaming options. So they wouldn't suddenly have access to modify the pages, but it is very simple to accidentally click a page. Says I'm unauthorized for this action because I'm not logged in to do it right now. But unless you go in and do some back-end work to assign certain pages to certain users, just out of the box, it's, I would say, a really good chance that you do at least one stream that goes to places you didn't want it to go. Just part of that workflow of sharing accounts. But you can do multiple things live at the same time. So if you've got different groups having live streamed worship services at once, you're not limited to just doing one live video and then, you know, another church has to pick another time when they start their service. It will manage this really well. So something to keep an eye on. And of course, as we start making some of these moves organization-wide, church-wide, all of that information will be available to all of our directors, of course, including Shannon, to share out with all of you about how this can work. Yep, exactly what Shannon said. She and I will talk about this, and anything that we come up with that's a tool you can use, we're going to get the word out to you about how to use it. And then, of course, that works both ways. We would love to hear things that you have found that I haven't talked about at all, because the folks on the ground are the ones that always find the best solutions because you're using it in the real world. So I would love to hear about anything that is working well for you, and then we can share that information around to other groups. Other questions or thoughts? I'm going to, I am not aware of Aware 3. So Catherine, if you know anything about it and want to tell us about it, that'd be awesome. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces for a minute. But yeah, Catherine, I'd love to hear.
So I came across this, pardon my child here. I came across this last week. I was just checking out an old church I used to go to, just from the thought of, you know, going to a church where I can just be a fly on the wall and not in a fishbowl. And I just started snooping around their website, and then I realized they had an app, and it's like, well, that's interesting. What's that all about? And it was made by Aware 3. I was like, well, what the heck is that? So I got on the website, and they have 3 different plans. I think one's $69 a month, one's $132 a month, and one's like $200 a month, which, you know, is super expensive. But if you start looking at what you already have subscriptions to, and things that, because I sat and did a demo with a lady, and I did subscribe to it, so I will be able to provide more information shortly.
Nice.
But we have a subscription right now to Wufoo Forms, to Constant Contact, to eTapestry, because we have an alumni group, Vanco Services, which was the PayPal before PayPal was PayPal, Superphone. You know, I'm up to 5 right now. So, imagine those are $10 a piece, that you're up to 50, and they're not $10 a piece. Some of them are like $35 a piece. Might as well already pay $69. And this thing, let me pull up ACC's ACC app. They don't have it. They're doing the basic plan, and I'm doing the basic plans. So there's the app of the church. It's a little slow to get started. It kind of just sticks. And then it comes up. So you can choose icon or pictures or words, and it's got an option if you can't read that. Calendar, sign up for stuff, see the bulletin, here's a Bible, notes, podcast, video, donate / give, social media, location, upcoming events, register for something. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And so I'm giving it a try because $130 is less than all that. And we're trying to really do a big push for our alumni group because we need funds. And we're just going to see how it's going.
That's great.
And we're gonna go with it. I don't know.
You raise a really good point there. And sometimes when you look at the cost of some of these things, it does seem like a lot. But when you start looking at what it replaces, you're really probably spending that. That's exactly what we found with when we were looking at this Vimeo Premium, and we got lucky because they were already being bought out. And so we were able to transition over from live stream without paying any more than we were already paying. But what we were able to do with all the functionality we got is end 2 other services that we were also paying for, because we had now not only a way to do live streaming, but a place to host all of our video and a place to do all of our back-end workflow between our editors and our folks who were cutting the pieces and we were delivering. So we were paying for 3 different services that now we just pay for the one. So even if we would have had to buy this service new, we're still coming out ahead to do that. So that's absolutely something to look at across the board, is what are you getting in addition to overusing a free service by putting a little bit into it. One other thing that we're exploring with Vimeo and live streaming is they have a donate function that works directly in their live streams. It connects with Stripe payment processing, and you can actually put an option. So if you're looking for a way to do online giving that's really easy right in your service stream, that's an option that's built in to Vimeo live streams that you can turn on or off. You don't have to use it, but it's something you can do. So we're exploring right now with the development office what that looks like to make that something that we have. Yeah. So just some other 3 tips that are out there. Best starter microphone for dabbling in podcasts. If you are looking for something around the $75 to $100 mark, Blue microphones are really good. Yeti mics are going to give you really good sound. If you want to go up a little bit more, now the problem is, just like every other piece of tech equipment right now, everything in the world is on back order. So you either have to get terrible equipment that's super, super cheap, or you've got to go really high end. But the mic that I use, I don't remember which one's me. This is a Rode Procaster, which is not as expensive as it looks. It's like $250, I think. And it's a USB mic, so it just plugs in directly to the computer, which is fantastic. This is the mic that we use for all of the podcasts that we do. So the Sermons That Work podcast is done with this. Bishop Curry uses this for his. It's just a super simple way for us to have him hook in and get right into his computer. If you want to go super top end, the one that everybody sees, nope. I'm going to tell you anyway because I'm a tech nerd. It's a Shure SM7B is the nerdy mic. That's the one that like has a very particular look. You would see it. But yeah, a Yeti Blue microphone would get really what you would need. Also, if you guys know of any really good Episcopal related podcasts, let me know, because we are in the process of getting ready to launch a podcast network. So one place that is all of our podcasts, but also podcasts that are Episcopal connected. We're starting to figure out what it looks like to, yes, Catherine, I'm ready for your podcast. Ready to see this happen. So, so as you're listening around all the things that are really good resources for you, we're working with Edgar Geraldo in Province 9 and a couple of other folks too, because we are very, very interested in having Spanish first content that is by and for that group, but any other groups as well. We want to try to get all this into one place because we're seeing really good traction on those things right now. Best software for podcasts. If you want a free software, the best thing is Audacity. So I'll put this in here. Great editing software. It's Windows, Mac, Linux compatible, 100% free. Works on everything except the newest version of Mac. So Mac Catalina, if you have the new OS, it doesn't work on that yet. It will, but because it's free software, or open source, it's a little behind. Will do anything you need to do editing wise, and it's absolutely free. If you have Creative Cloud or you're an Adobe user, Adobe Audition is what we edit in. That's, again, all the podcasts that we run are done in Adobe Audition. Podbean is a great host. We use, sorry, Shannon, get on track. Let's go. No, that's fine. Are there any other questions for small groups and online worship? And then I'm happy to geek out on all of the tech things that you want to talk about. I will tell you, in the podcast realm, we're not doing this just across the board, but when we launched Bishop Curry's podcast and now the Sermons That Work and Habits of Grace and the other ones, we went to an enterprise level right off the bat with the idea of building a podcast network that we could host. So we went out and found, it's the service that runs Oprah's podcast network, the NPR network. You can't actually just pay to subscribe. They have to take you as a client. And so we called them and emailed them and begged them and said, we know we're not that big, but we have a big idea and we're in a genre you don't have. And so they let us in. And so that's who we use. It's a service called Megaphone. And we have basically unlimited bandwidth for an unlimited number of podcasts. And what we are exploring right now, and we're doing this with Radical Love Live, which is connected with St. John the Divine in New York, just as a trial basis, and we're looking at a couple of others, is what we are interested in doing is exchanging free hosting for allowing us to do ads in our network of folks that we do ENS ads with, and we do ads on Bishop Curry's podcast. And essentially what that allows us to do is generate more content and pay for it without having to charge our churches and our groups of people. So if there is an idea, yes, Easton is fantastic. But if there's an idea for a podcast that you have that you might be interested in having a deeper conversation offline, whether it's one that exists that you might want to bring into a network, or if you have a new idea for something, we can have a really robust, in-depth conversation about what a tool like that might look like. But we are fully set up to deploy lots and lots of those right now. Very soon, we're going to be doing that with video as well through Vimeo. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. Best practices, setting up space and setting tone. If anybody on here has a good answer to Matthew's question, that would be great, because what I have found is it's completely across the board. We don't actually do a lot of that. What we do is we've tried to clean up the Buffalo Bill stuff in Bishop Curry's background. That's about as far into it as we have gone. It's like, Bishop, if we could take the helmet out, that'd be great. But really, one of the things that we've done for space and tone is to get the best quality number one audio that you can. You want to take down as many barriers as possible. So really good audio is, I would say, paramount. even more than great video quality, great lighting. All of those are secondary to having really good sound. People have been incorporating music in a million different ways. We have some congregations, and again, this all depends on your context. Some groups are in places where you can get into the building and record with a piano safely, or you can socially distance and have maybe a singer. Lots of conversation going online about all of that I'm not going to weigh into one way or the other. But some folks are recording. The church that I attend just had their organist go in with this little Zoom recorder and had him go in by himself, and they recorded like 9 or 10 organ preludes. And we just shot I went over to the church by myself and shot some B-roll of the church, and we're just creating an opening for the online services that's just really pretty day outside the church. It has beautiful grounds, and just showing some looks around the outside of the building and an organ voluntary. It's a cool way to get started, let them hear a little bit of the music, and it's their organ, so it has that sound. And so that has helped. One of the other things that I would say is, if you are doing an online service, either in Zoom or on something like Facebook where there's a comments section, have someone who is part of the service as the person interacting with that group. So rather than just looking at it as everybody is observing this video that's being played, they're participating in worship. So again, to go back to my home parish as an example, we have someone who basically goes through the service leaflet, and they will post the different parts of the service. This is the collect that's being read, or even as simple as posting the bulletin on your Facebook page and then having a link to it. Anything that you can do to take down a barrier between the folks on the different sides of the screen is what we're hoping for. So pre-recorded services have also done really, really well for us. We've moved away from trying to do a Facebook Live at 10 a.m. on Sunday, and we just film morning prayer during the week and then premiere it on Facebook. And that seems to work really well, and it gets us around a lot of those tech glitches that folks are finding when the servers are.
Just one note that
Yep.
some people have heard me talk about this before, but if you're not doing a Zoom worship where everyone's together and can see everything, but you're just interested in streaming, we've started using StreamYard, and it's one word, StreamYard. And the reason I say that is we can then add in our church musician at her house playing her piano for postlude and prelude or a voluntary. You can add in recordings of, they go down to the church, just 2 of them, socially distancing, and record a piano with a vocalist. So there are ways to add in music. I've seen folks that are, just leading morning prayer from their homes, but even having a candle in front of them that's visible can make a really big difference. So the little things like that can help set the tone. One of my friends that does it invites folks to set up their own space. So bring in your candle, bring in a significant sacred object as you come together to pray. And so it's sort of inviting them to create their own worship space where they are. So, yeah.
One thing I want to make sure I get to Catherine's question about copyrights. We have heard nothing official about anything being safer to use, so we absolutely say either have the licenses or use public domain. Here's a link I just put in the chat to, we have a whole COVID-19 section. I'm sure that Shannon has pointed you there, probably our most filled up section, our worship and formation resources. But on there, if you dig through the resources section, there is a huge list of public domain hymns and public domain music. So if you're looking to avoid any kind of copyright issues, there's a big list of songs that you can use. If you're creating videos with music in the background, check out YouTube. They have a large library of free music that you can use. They also have sound effects, so if you want to just really go crazy. But you can get a lot of good music there. There's also really good options for cheap songs. You can get there's a place called the Music Bed. Let me put these in here. The Music Bed, artlist.io is another good one. And what was the third one? Video Hive. These are all three services that have stock music that's everything from $5 to $500, depending on the licenses. Also, the last copyright note that I'll give is a CCLI license or a one license to print copies of your music for your choir is not the same license as a streaming license. It's a different license that you need. So dive into checking out those pages before you stream music on your services. It's not super expensive. I am currently aware of 3 different instances where churches or Episcopal related organizations are in copyright lawsuits over this kind of stuff. So it is being looked at. So please don't think we're a small church, we're a small group, it'll be fine. Most of this is done in automated ways. It's not somebody going through and looking at every service. It's all done by bots and crawlers, and there's tons of tools out there that will find anything that might be infringed on. So there's really good resources out there. ccli.org, right on their front page, has some very good tutorials and FAQs on how to do this the right way. So make sure you check those out, just fully to protect your ministry and your own groups. That's 4. I'm happy to hang around and answer questions. But Shannon, I also invite you to share around my email address and social media information. And I'm happy to answer questions. We do Q&As with folks all the time, individual consultations. We'll look at your Facebook page or your streaming and try to help you set that up. So would love to help any of you do that any way
Excellent.
I can.
Thanks. So we can stick around. For those of you that are on, all of the notes in the section, I will download those and put them into a document. We'll upload this video either tonight or tomorrow, so that if you want to share it or spread the information around, it will be ready to go tonight or tomorrow. So yeah, if any of you have any other questions, we'll stick around.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Any other questions y'all have?
Let me see Beth's question here. Oh. I do not know about different settings of tunes. That's something that I have seen, but I do not know. I would check with onelicense.net as a first resource to get an answer to that question. Yep, that's where I would begin.
I will say about if even if you have a license, so my husband's church, they had a license, they have the streaming license. The church musician did her own piece, but YouTube's bots took it down and said, copyright infringement. So he had to argue with them a little bit, and then it was fine. But it's almost like you have to prove that you're a human that's done this music.
Right.
There may still be some back and forths, even if you're covered. So that's just an FYI.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we, as an organization and communications department, chose not to use YouTube as our main streaming platform is they're notorious for cutting off live streams. I think Chris Sikkema was telling me that the governor of Minnesota had a COVID announcement, and they had some sort of background something playing, and they shut down the state of Minnesota's announcement. And deleted the account. So like they couldn't, they'll completely shut you down. So Facebook is a little kinder. They will silence the music and leave it up and say, hey, check out this section, and then confirm that you have the rights to it. But YouTube, because they started out as the video place and there's so much pirating happening, they are very, very strict about it. But it's just one, like I said at the very beginning, we're not operating in the ideal, but it's just one of those headaches that we have to pay attention to.
Yep. Kevin made a good point in the comments that if your diocese is a you should be covered by your diocese nonprofit status, but check with your diocese, because you want to make sure that they have the streaming, and if they don't, you might encourage them to subscribe to it so that congregations can take advantage of that. So just double check and make sure that they have the right licensing as well.
Yeah, and one of the things to remember, especially when you are, because we looked into what does it look like, what if we had an Episcopal Church license? What if we got everybody together and paid a bunch of money and we had one? And the problem we ran into is one of the requirements of a license is reporting. So when you have a license, technically, even though a lot of places don't do it, you've got to tell them every time you play a song. And so it just became completely untenable for us to do that as an organization. So that's just one of those pieces to check into. I absolutely am all for, if there's a way for a diocese to do it, anything like that we can centralize is fantastic. We just haven't found a way to realistically pull that off.
Any other questions that you guys have or comments? Awesome.
Cool.
If you think of anything, I'll put Jeremy's email in the pieces that we share out, and you can always contact me. Jeremy, thank you for joining us. It's been really helpful.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see other people.
Right.
All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thanks, you guys. Bye.
All right. Have a good one.